our vision is to create a society that actively opposes discrimination, focusing on marginalized groups like women, migrants, indigenous, and LGBTQI individuals. More inclusion is insufficient. Mere inclusion is insufficient. We aim for a profound societal transformation by dismantling unjust structures across economic, environmental, social, sexual, racial, generational, it's a long one, and ethnic dimensions. I mean, more than this for division, the words that are there, that is exactly what we want to aim. And what is important from White Plus is, I want to highlight this, is we strive for making the link on economic, gender, and across all the different topics that brings us together, violence, women's rights, and what is bringing us today, political rights. Our strategies, we have capacity building on feminist activists, organizations, and different stakeholders. We provide networking and transnational spaces like this one, and international solidarity to feminists. So because all the different organizations member are based in Germany, in Denmark, in Sweden, Italy, Spain, Belgium, of course, and members, also individual members that are based also in different countries. Also we have Albania in the organizations. So we create, what we aim is to create this European network that is reflecting, striving for feminist issues across Europe and of course in the other parts of the world. And we also, of course, all what we bring out from the capacity building and the networks give us the input to create a convenient advocacy and lobby and policy towards the European Union. So how White Plus works? We have thematic working groups, which are trade and gender working group, and this is working, as it says, trade and gender, but all the dynamics on the different trade policies, economic policies, business policies that are related, that are done in Europe, and how that impacts from a gender perspective, and how it impacts in the countries where the trade and the agreements are done. Migration and Gender Working Group is the group that is convening today here, and with this one it's supporting a lot from grassroots women's movement, because that is also important to bring the migrant grassroots groups. I don't want to use the group grassroots, but it doesn't come. My English is not that native language to use the right word, so I just use the word of we have learned from the development word, sorry. So, but I mean to this, the differentiation between the academics and the practitioners and the people who are really at the base of the problems, and this for migrant organizations is key, because it's about how the process of migration you can really get a position in the country where you're living and claim the rights. And this most of the migrants, it's quite a big different group, diverse from academics, but also from domestic workers. Yeah, so we have all kind of groups in the migration working group, refugee women. So then we have the Feminist Movement Building Working Group, and this is a group that is aiming to create, we made in some years ago, 2016 already, a main conference here in Europe on feminist in Europe, and that was quite a successful conference with 200 women coming from different parts of Europe to really discuss feminist issues. We are willing to organize a next meeting on this. Then we had COVID, we're still trying, and we are struggling also with financial, but we do online a lot of webinars and topics that are bringing the feminist building together. So we do it in this way. Feminist Economic Literacy Working Group, we had always, White was always quite relevant on creating manuals and tools to understand economics, so that everyone can understand from a feminist perspective and power, understanding of power relations and unpacking power structures, to understand where, how the linkages with economic power and women's rights is. So we can actually find where is the spot and then go and find change there and claim for advocacy. So this work is still going on. Besides this, those are the 10 topics that bring us together. We have project working groups, which is more the ones that when we have subsidies, we can kind of mix the groups and the thematics, and then we find fundings to make a project on it, which is one of the ones that is bringing us together. We empower. So we empower, so what is the objective? We empower, as I just said, is coming from the Migrant Working Group, is to encourage women migrant to participate in civic and democratic action in Europe. And we also want to include also all migrant women, including gender non-conforming persons who displaced between countries and trafficked from third countries, from other countries out of Europe also, but also countries who are about to be part of European, the EU. So we partnership with women-led and migrant women organizations and share the mission of protect the rights of women and migrant women. Who participated in this project? This is White Plus, Red Latinas, which is a network in Spain. Gender and Development in Practice. There are in Sweden, isn't it? Yeah. Romania Women's Lobby, they are in Italy. So it's Roma, yeah. In?
That's Adri.
Okay, yeah. And where is Romania?
Romania.
In Romania? Yeah. Okay, great. No, sometimes we have the groups that are from one but living in the other because of themselves, intra-European migrant groups. Action Ed, Alianza por la Solidaridad, and then Kulu. Kulu is the abbreviation for this, which they are in Denmark, isn't it? Kulu. I don't want to make efforts to mention. Atina is an interesting organization also based in Serbia, working also with trafficked women arriving in Europe. This is a project is funded by Erasmus+. We started in 22 and are, the 7 consortium partners. And mainly activities were research capacity building and resource building. It was around making trainings, and yeah, the different moments. This is something that we do a lot, is bringing all the knowledge from the different countries and put it together. People learn from their own experiences, learning exchanges, and strategic communications. And then we made research that was also one of the main topics that we are discussing today, actually. What is the place of migrant women in communication? I guess I'm getting out of time. Thank you, sorry. So, and of course, the different events that are bringing, discussing the research findings, but each time we made in each different country, we were bringing also women in politics, migrant women in politics, also to discuss and talk about their challenges and experiences on being part of politics, really, in the public sphere. We produce, this is important, I don't know, we have the link, we can share it later. Also, the link is there, a QR code or something that people could link it to it also, where you can find all the material tools. What we want to do is that all migrant women organizations can access these tools and learn on how the different organizations are doing different strategies to put women more in migrant women, facilitate more on the facilitate women, migrant women, their participation in politics. The research finding, I think you can find also online most of the things, but I think we are not, this is not new to us, how low the representation of migrant women is in politics. Also considering also at the EU level, but also national level. Might be more women in the really local representation, but even further up goes in the scale of representation, less women or less migrant women are. There are some organizations who are working on this, so we are highlighting here 4 organizations that are important in the way how they are working with bringing women on the topics of politics. And we also have the barriers that are not facilitating participation of migrant women, which is like the lack of electoral rights, the intersectional discrimination. We're just discussing about the discrimination that is structural also, the hate speech and online violence, you know, that when a woman, even if it's not migrant, they have to go a lot of hate speech, even if it's migrant women, when this comes even more. And of course, the underrepresentation of migrant women in the media. And then the different measures to promote and improve the participation of migrant women. I think we are going to discuss that later also, the action plans that are to be implemented for the European Commission, and the expert groups that have these views on asylum, and having more migrant councils and consultative bodies also is something that is important. And there are no known actions at the EU level to increase this, so that is something that we are also claiming on how to increase the quotas of migrant women at the EU level. And of course, collecting more data to be able to have more inputs and indicators for lobbying advocacy. Emma, did I say everything? Wrapping up.
Does anyone have any questions?
Questions, or should we keep the questions by the end and everyone to, otherwise we rest on, we're already late. So I prefer to move on. Please, if you have questions on this, because a lot of questions might be answered later with all the other, and then we can make a discussion with everyone in the overall. Thank you very much. Yeah. Info White Plus. Yeah, but perhaps you were going, we will talk about this. So we, as White Plus, we do invite all the organizations who are interested in joining White Plus as member to just contact. I mean, Emma is the project coordinator, and we are really willing to open spaces, and everyone is welcome to come and participate and bring propositions that we can work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So, hello everyone and welcome. I know I've already been briefly introduced earlier. So my name is Emma Rennie, and I am indeed the project coordinator for We Empower. I also oversee the Gender and Migration Working Group at White Plus. And so for the next part of our program today, we're going to have a panel session with 3 women who bring a wealth of insights on the intersections surrounding migrant women's political participation. And I would like to kindly invite them up onto the stage, please. Thank you. So Cecilia Torres, and Shada Islam, and Laluma Sadid. I'll just switch around.
This is yours?
Yes. So just to really give a proper introduction to our 3 guests. So Cecilia Torres is a dedicated local councillor at Autonay-Louvain-la-Neuve, and this role that she's held since 2018. She is a representative of the Ecolo Party, and Cecilia has a background in sociology and applied sciences, and she has gained a master's degree from the University of Leuven with a deep commitment to ecofeminism and social justice. She is originally from Ecuador, and Cecilia has a rich professional background that spans Latin America and Europe. She has worked extensively in Ecuador with NGOs and the United Nations Development Programme, and has led impactful projects on gender equality and women's empowerment. Her advocacy for women's political participation began there, where she founded 2 feminist organisations and championed women's inclusion in decision-making roles. In Belgium, Cecilia continues her mission through initiatives that address poverty, gender inequality, and the inclusion of migrant women. She is a founding member of Collective de Femmes, which provides training and capacity building for women and promotes greater representation of women in politics. As part of the Ecolo Party, she also serves as a substitute parliamentarian for the Walloon region, amplifying her influence at a regional level. And she is also passionate about building connections and creating opportunities. And Cecilia is a tireless advocate for marginalised communities, particularly for women and for those from migrant backgrounds. So our next panelist is Lailuma Sadid. She is an accomplished professional with extensive experience in journalism, diplomacy, and advocacy. Since 2022, she has served as a research assistant at the Faculty of Journalism at UELB. Concurrently, she works as a freelance journalist for outlets such as Brussels Morning, Media Latitudes Belgium. And Lailuma is deeply invested in Afghan diaspora issues, chairing the network of the Afghan diaspora in Europe called NADU. And she is also co-founder of CLIAB, which also supports Afghan communities internationally. Since 2020, she has served as a facilitator for the UNHCR in Belgium, aiding the integration of refugees and asylum seekers, a role reflecting her humanitarian commitment. Her career in diplomacy is also quite notable. From 2009 to 2012, she served as a diplomat for the embassy of Afghanistan in Belgium, representing Afghan interests at NATO summits as well as other international summits. In 2024, Lailuma stood as a candidate in the European elections for DFE, underscoring her dedication for advocating for Afghan and diaspora interests at a broader level. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Shada Islam, who is an award-winning and well-known Brussels-based commentator on EU affairs, who now works independently as an advisor, analyst, strategist, and op-ed writer on Europe, Africa, Asia, geopolitics, trade, as well as issues concerning racial diversity and inclusion in the EU institutions. Her columns are often published in the EU Observer, The Guardian, and Hyphen Online. Shada has worked for 9 years as the Director of Europe and Geopolitics at the think tank Friends of Europe. She now runs her own Brussels-based global media strategy and advisory company called the New Horizons Project. Shada is a senior advisor at the European Policy Centre in Brussels and renowned international communications firm, and is also a visiting professor at the College of Europe. Political Europe. Okay. Oh, I'm going to finish. So she was also identified as Brussels' 20 most influential women in 2017. Through her extensive experience, a thought leadership and unwavering commitment to inclusion and equality, Shada has become a leading voice in shaping EU policy and fostering dialogue on global geopolitics. And yeah, as you can see, they're very accomplished, and you should be really happy that they're here today. So to kick off things, I want to ask them each the same question. And so the question is, What motivated each of you to pursue a career in politics or activism? And how has your experience as a migrant woman shaped your perspectives on leadership? Who would like to start? Cecilia, would you like to start?
Ça fonctionne comme ça? Oui? Direct. Bien, je suis arrivée ici à la Belgique pour faire ma maîtrise. Et là, toujours j'ai été connectée et j'ai été militante du mouvement féministe latino-américain et ici à la Belgique aussi. Là, j'ai commencé à travailler et à coordonner le travail à l'intérieur des ONG ou ASBL de femmes et de femmes migrantes. À Louvain-la-Neuve, il y a un collectif de femmes qui c'est des femmes migrantes. Et là, on a vu, avec des autres latino-américaines comme Christina, que c'est pas bon de nous être très fermés comme femmes migrantes, que c'est bien de sortir et de faire le contact avec les femmes belges de Bruxelles qui travaillent dans la thématique. Parce qu'on a été invités comme collectif de femmes avec les autres groupes de femmes pour faire la danse, pour faire la nourriture, quelque chose d'exotique, des défilés de modas, etc. Et on a dit non. Nous voulons être de la même façon que les femmes belges parce que nous avons eu l'expérience et la capacité pour faire aussi les discussions théoriques, de faire des projets d'exemple, etc. Et là, on a commencé à faire les ponts avec les mouvements de femmes de Bruxelles, premièrement, et après de la Belgique. Il y avait la grande opportunité de ce moment à organiser la plateforme de la marche mondiale des femmes. Et là, on a demandé les mêmes postes de toutes les femmes pour apporter et pour recevoir aussi toutes les bonnes expériences. Et à partir de là, on a commencé, aussi en l'Amérique latine, on a commencé à dire c'est pas possible parce qu'on travaille pour 1200, pour 2000, pour 3000 femmes, mais pas pour toutes les femmes. Ça manque quelque chose. Et on a travaillé toujours avec les politiques pour pousser les lois, pour sensibiliser sur la problématique des droits des femmes. Et il y avait toujours beaucoup de résistance, mais c'est vrai qu'il y avait beaucoup aussi de politiques alliées avec lesquelles on a travaillé ensemble. Ici en la Belgique aussi, on s'est trouvé bien avec les partis de gauche, mais parfois aussi avec les partis de droite, parce qu'il y avait des femmes ou des politiques sensibles à la thématique. Et là, on a dit, c'est vrai que rien des choses que nous avons maintenant, rien a été gratuit. Tout a été en lutte que le mouvement des femmes et le mouvement féministe a fait pour avoir ces lois ou ces politiques qui ont besoin pour toutes les femmes, pas seulement pour les femmes qui touchent les ONG ou les groupes de femmes qui travaillent, sinon pour toutes les femmes, en ce cas de les femmes migrantes et de les femmes belges ici. Et là, ok, on a dit maintenant on a 4-5 journées de travail, mais après c'est bien de penser en être en politique, les femmes, et surtout les femmes migrantes, parce que personne ne va à lutter pour nous à l'intérieur des partis si on n'est pas à l'intérieur. Et à partir de là, j'ai commencé à penser c'est nécessaire de moi être à l'intérieur de la politique. Toujours, moi j'ai travaillé toujours avec les partis écolos, et là je m'ai identifié les moments que me sont invités à participer en la liste pour le conseiller communal. J'ai dit oui, pourquoi pas. Et il y avait une chose très intéressante, laquelle moi j'ai été très motivée, parce qu'elle a été la première fois qu'une femme d'écolo a été la première en la liste. Et ici, on gagne parce qu'on a gagné ce temps, on a gagné tout le temps avec la majorité, va avoir la possibilité d'avoir un bourgmestre femme en la région. Et j'ai dit, OK, je vais appuyer ça. C'est possible que je ne sorte pas, mais ça va, on y va. Et à partir de là, j'ai commencé à travailler porte à porte, comme on a été femmes de terrain, avec les organisations de femmes. Il y a beaucoup d'expériences de travail politique parce qu'à l'intérieur des organisations, on fait la politique très forte, mais pas de parti. Et à partir de là, les résultats étaient positifs. Et j'ai été en la liste, le numéro 23, et j'ai monté al poste 9 et j'ai été élu. Et à partir de là, on a dit, OK, on va travailler, moi, personnellement, et le groupe de femmes avec laquelle moi je travaille, les collectifs, on a dit, on va travailler en 2 thèmes, femmes et migrantes. Et on a travaillé. Après, je vais continuer à raconter, mais la raison pour laquelle moi, je me décidé à faire la politique, c'est parce que nous avons besoin de lois, nous avons besoin de politiques qui se bénéficient toutes les femmes. Pas seulement 200, 300, c'est bien ce travail aussi, c'est pas mal, mais surtout, c'est nécessaire d'être à l'intérieur des partis politiques et de la politique et des postes de décision pour commencer à travailler pour notre droit. Merci.
I think sorry, I think it works like that. Thank you very much and good morning. Thanks for organizing this important event as a refugee. Let's say this is about migrants, and also I will add refugee because my background is refugee. So to be in this panel, it's very, very important. Today we together to do something and bring the voice for all women. Doesn't matter they are refugee, migrants, but they are living in the European countries from different backgrounds, to raise their voice, that we show that we can do something. Always there is like a barrier between refugees, migrants, and the other person that they are living in the other countries. So that's why we are trying to break this barrier, discrimination, and also always violence, and this kind of things. That's very important. So that's why I decided to join the political parties to bring something to change. As Cecilia talked about that, I, as a journalist background and also the person that with a lot of difficulties, I start finishing my higher education here in Belgium in political science. When I start the procedure, I feel it's so difficult. And I thought if I live in one of the European countries, maybe it's not so difficult. And I said, I will never give up and I will try until the moment that I take it. Finally finishing my master in political science and then working as a journalist with different media, especially before the collapse of Afghanistan. Still, I'm not really so involved with the politics here in Europe, but as a journalist, always involved to write, to know everything. After the collapse, I said that, okay, this is good opportunity. Do something and show for the people they are always refusing, women especially, doesn't matter where they are living. I said, I will do something to show we are also human, and especially women, we can do a lot of things that sometimes maybe men are not available to do that. For 2 reasons that I said this time I will join with the politics. First of all, because in Afghanistan, women are not allowed to do any activities. They are removing from the society. not allowed to study, working, even they are not allowed to go in the park. And unfortunately, for the moment, there is no place that even women should talk with a woman. I said, politics maybe can change something. In Europe also, we are facing as a refugee and migrants with a lot of difficulties. And I'm sure that the person who is with the background of migrants and refugees, they are feeling really goodly these things. I said the second message that sure for the refugees and migrants, we can do that. We are not different. Huh? When we are living in some of the European countries, it means that we have the right, like them, to push the other women to come and join. For example, when I saw that the number of women, especially from the background of migrants and refugees, it's not a lot to compare with the other. I said, okay, this is the moment to show, to bring the idea, we can do that. Why not? Huh? If we, she, or he, her, or me, that have some seats in the parliament, doesn't matter only parliament, but some big organization, and have the right to take decision, we can do a lot together. So that was the aim, to bring that idea, because I talked during the campaign with many different group of women and even men. I say that we can make it. And so to bring all together until the moment the women are not united and not solidarity with each other, not easy to reach it. So that's why important to be involved in the politics, to bring the idea that we want. And we are capable. There is all migrants and refugees with higher education, higher background. I'm sure Shana will explain more because she's involved more with the European policies and advocating this kind of things. And she has more experience than me because for me to join with the politics, it's very new. And the difficulties that never stop us to go ahead. Even the time, sorry, if we receive to rating, but for example, me, I never afraid, and I said until the moment that I am alive, then I will do something. And sorry, I don't know what happened with my voice. And then, so as a woman, we can do a lot. And the example is there is very good next to me, and she explained, and as she said, there is something missed to be involved in the politics. I'm super happy that I see sometimes the migrants and refugees in a high level, especially women, as I am feeling that more than feminist. So always pleasure for me to be there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. I'm really honored to share a platform with three wonderful women, and all of you. Lelou has said something very important, which I think is crucial. And she talked about women sticking together, working together in alliance with men. I think that is so crucial. And in my life here, I have seen that there is no such solidarity at the level of women in Europe. There is a huge divide, getting wider and wider, if I may say so, between women like us, women of color, whether there's a migrant background or not, because I've been here for almost 50 years. I don't consider myself a migrant. I'm a European citizen of color, and I'm a full-fledged European. I pay my taxes, I vote, I have a passport, I'm European. Damn it, I am European. But there is this big divide between women. And this is something that I find really deeply depressing and disappointing in today's world,
because we have such huge challenges in front of us as humanity, and we do not confront them together. So what brought me here was actually studying. I went to ULB. I did my master's in journalism and social communication. And then I was extremely fortunate. I found an internship with one of the world's, I would say, most prominent European journalists at that point, an Italian gentleman called Emmanuel Gazzo. He set up a newsletter. He was working, he was already very senior then, Agence Europe, which was really the kind of Bible. It was the political of the time, political, but much more serious, much more in depth. And I became an intern there, and I grew up as a journalist with him guiding me and his two daughters. And it was just the most amazing experience. So I had learned from my father the importance of equality, democracy, and speaking truth to power. And then from Emmanuel Gazzo, I learned the importance of being European, because he was a passionate federalist and a passionate European. So that's where I got this from. And then when I graduated and I started working in the European Union press room and became a journalist, including for the BBC, and I was focused on the EU and its foreign policy. I just found myself in a very interesting environment. I was young, I was brown, of Muslim descent, and the world of Europe was really white men, with very few women there. We were maybe, 12 women or so. And it was a very interesting environment, and I found myself very lucky to be working on Europe at a time when it was a progressive Europe. It was a Europe, yes, of course, we had our colonial baggage, and of course we had all of the countries had very serious colonial baggage to carry, including Belgium, France, Italy, Spain. But there was still a determination to learn from the past and to create a Europe of peace, a Europe that actually, I have to confess, inspired many other regions to try and do the same thing, right? In Africa, in Asia, to come together the way Europe was coming together. So it was a very, very inspiring moment, a very important moment, and I think I was very privileged to have worked at a time where there was Jacques Delors, Pascal Lamy, Chris Patton, Javier Solana, and I haven't written my memoirs yet, but if I were to do that, these men really, really, they were men. But there was Emma Bonino also there, really inspiring. But I found now, of course, we live in a right-wing Europe. I mean, we don't call it a far-right Europe yet, but we're heading that way. I think everybody now recognizes what I've been saying for the last 4 or 5 years, as we saw it happening after the pandemic, etc. And I think, my fight for anti-racist, a truly authentic feminist Europe is, I think, just beginning, because we face enormous, Leluma has pointed to all the different challenges we face, not to mention climate change, but just in terms of being European, what does it mean to be a European today? What is a good European and what is a bad European? And to what extent are we willing to compromise on our values and our principles in today's very, very complex and challenging world? So I'll stop there. But this is I'm not a politician. I'm a journalist, an analyst, a commentator, and I've learned through very inspiring people in my life to really speak truth to power. And that, I think, is the key role of journalists in today's world. We should not listen. We should be willing to challenge and question politicians. And increasingly, Emma, I think you can agree with me, increasingly in today's Europe, we don't challenge our politicians. Yeah. We give them, the more extreme they are, yes. We give them publicity and visibility, because we like, you want the clicks, you want the advertising, you want the viewers, you want the readers, so you go for the extremes. And I think that is something that we should be very afraid of. There is darkness out there, and we've lived through that darkness in Europe, and we're walking into it again if we continue to demonize our minorities, our racialized minorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. So a lot of important things touched on, and maybe some of the questions in the audience will pick up on some of the things there. But I want to ask Laluma a question about her experience in running in the European elections this year. Can you share some of the challenges that you faced as a candidate, and were there any barriers that you think that migrant women face specifically? And what advice would you give to those who are thinking about pursuing a similar path?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is a very good question. Before I join in the politics and be a candidate, always questioning how I can reach this. Then few times, especially after the collapse of Afghanistan, then I start talking with the people, especially the Belgian citizens. And I invited many different events to talk about Afghanistan, because I was the only journalist from Afghanistan, especially women. And then when I asked a lot of questions about what is happening, especially for the moment in the world, in Afghanistan, so the politicians and also organizations, that they are inviting me in many different events. And then every time when I talked with them, I feel that there is something wrong, especially with the politicians. They are sometimes, sorry to say that, I'm also not really 100% politician, because I always feel that I'm a journalist, I'm free, I want to talk, I want to do what I want. But I say that sometimes they are sorry, using especially the refugees and migrants. I say that I don't want. We are, as Shada said, that we are also human and also European. When we are living in a country, for me the feeling is that more than before, I feel that I'm a Belgian than Afghan, because this is my country, this is my home, and they give everything for me. Why not to do for that? And I said, I will make it. Then I had a lot of contacts with IMER, with Ecolo, and also with DIFI, sometimes with the NVA. Then I said, okay, that's good. I did some research about that, which political party is good. For me, DIFI is very more interesting, because I saw and I found there is more possibility for the refugees, for the migrants, especially that political party 20 years ago, they gave a position for the ministry for the black woman in Belgium. And I said, this is something different, because there's more other political parties. Mostly they are using the refugees, and that I don't want that. I said, okay, I will make it. So before I start joining that, I talked a lot with different people from that political parties, also with the other political parties. The way is very easy to arrive here. They make me like a turn behind myself, bring me in different difficulties. If you don't have this, if you are not the background, if you are not, a lot of things that come back the same point. Okay, go directly or turn, then this is the same point. Okay, that's true, I'm a refugee, it's not a problem. I speak the language, not perfectly, because this is not my mother tongue. I said that's not so difficult, that's why I choose the European Parliament. And I studied here, I'm integrated, I paid the taxes, and also everything, the others, why not me? And then I said, okay, so this is the point. Doesn't matter. I'm really originally not from the European countries. And they said that, yeah, but this and this and this. I said that, no, I want this and I want this. Without any, negotiation. They said, why? I said, because I'm also European. I'm a Belgian. Can you say this the same for the other people? They are from Europe. They said, yeah. I said, no, there is no yeah, there is no no. I am facing more challenge than the others. As a journalist, yes, I tried to get a job as a journalist here in Belgium. because of my language, they are refusing me. Then that's why I work with many different journals in Afghanistan or media. I said, this time it doesn't work like that. Okay, I show it is. This is the time that we can make it something. And then I'm very lucky, Sophie Royani and also Francois Desmet, they support me. And they say that, okay, we can give you this opportunity, then show yourself. And sometimes they pushing me, but some other women from different political parties, when we went in many discussions, they say that that's not for you. I said, why not for me? If it's for you, why not for me? We are all together. Doesn't matter I am refusing or I didn't accept to be in your political party, but I want to show that we can make it. Doesn't matter I succeed or not. The success is for me to join that, to show, okay, there's different challenges, but I can make it. Never give up. So that's why I say that I broke the barriers to enter in that. And I'm very glad, especially for the refugees from Afghanistan, in the communal election, I saw 5 women from my country, they came and joined that. And I said, maybe more than 50 years that they are living in Belgium, but they never tried because they are always afraid. And I talked with all of them and I said, you can do that. So this is also kind of success, to bring all together and join and say that, okay, as a migrant or refugee, I am in the table, I can do something especially for the women from that background. Otherwise, sorry, but the Europeans always thinking different, but we think different. And then we are doing the best for the community, not only from Afghanistan or Pakistan. Woman or woman, we are always feeling or facing with different challenge and discrimination. If we are together, I'm sure that we are succeed. This is the most important, to be united, to bring the reality and show that we can make it. No one can break it.
Thank you. And the next question is for Cecilia. Based on your experiences in local government, how do you think policies can be adapted to bring more migrant women into a local or regional level in Belgium?
Bien, avec mon expérience, je vois que, premièrement, on doit travailler avec les partis politiques même. Pourquoi? Parce que les partis politiques, ce n'est pas sensible à la thématique des femmes, à la thématique de genre. On doit commencer à introduire la thématique pour que les partis acceptent travailler la thématique. Je ne peux pas aller directement à la commune à parler ou à avoir la nécessité de commencer à faire des politiques et des petites lois pour les femmes si mon parti n'est pas très certain de qu'on doit travailler comme parti les thèmes de genre. Et on a commencé, pas moi toute seule, j'ai commencé à chercher des alliés, femmes et hommes aussi, et on a commencé à donner des formations de genre. Ça m'a aidé beaucoup en organisation de femmes ici à Bruxelles, Le Monde selon les femmes, et que nous avons commencé à sensibiliser qu'est-ce que ça veut dire la thématique des droits des femmes, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire la violence envers les femmes, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire la problématique même des genres. Et là, les partis ont commencé, après de 6 mois de travail, sont commencés à dire, OK, maintenant on peut se réunir et faire une assemblée générale pour voir qu'est-ce que se propose Cecilia à nous, comme écolos, pour travailler. Et comme ça, je crois que si on gagnent les partis politiques, parce que c'est pas que les partis politiques écolos c'est patriarcal, mais c'est un parti des hommes. Et le problème c'est que les femmes qui sont à l'intérieur, malheureusement, n'est pas un agent de femmes pour travailler. Il n'y a pas de programme de femmes pour travailler à l'intérieur des partis. Malheureusement, il y a la quota. Mais la quota, c'est pour faire la loi, mais pas pour autre chose. Et malheureusement aussi, les femmes qui sont élues, on n'est pas sûr de qu'elles vont travailler pour les femmes ou pour les migrantes. Non, parfois sont plus hommes que les autres. Et pour c'est ça que nous devons, premièrement, travailler les thèmes à l'intérieur. Et on a fait ça. Et après une année que moi, j'ai travaillé avec les groupes des alliés, on a travaillé les thèmes des genres, on a eu l'Assemblée générale, ils ont accepté pour unanimité de travailler les thèmes des genres à l'intérieur. Et qu'est-ce qu'on a fait? On a pris les programmes d'écolo et on a dit, OK, on va pas changer, mais ajouter les programmes des femmes que l'écolo doit faire. Ils sont acceptés. Et à partir de là, nous, d'une façon légale, entre guillemets, on a continué à travailler les thèmes des femmes. Et à partir de là, moi, j'ai été conseiller communal et on a présenté dans le conseil communal suivant une motion pour travailler la violence envers les femmes en la commune. Et ça a été fantastique parce que a été pour unanimité voté la motion. Mais aussi parce que nous savons, écolo et moi, on a été à l'intérieur du conseil communal et tout le monde très sensible pour parler avec les autres partis que c'est nécessaire de travailler. Et à Louvain-la-Neuve et à Otigny, surtout à Louvain-la-Neuve, c'est très nécessaire de travailler les thèmes de violence envers les femmes parce qu'il y a l'université. Et jamais l'université a accepté qu'il y a des violences en l'université avec les étudiantes femmes surtout et harcèlement aussi. Et parce que l'université a dit non, l'université est connue pour excellente. On ne peut pas descendre à dire qu'il y a des violences à l'intérieur. On ne peut pas accepter ça. Et on a commencé à travailler très fortement avec les organisations de femmes de Otigny et de Louvain-la-Neuve pour faire comprendre à l'université qu'elle doit accepter pour avoir à l'intérieur une cellule qui travaille contre ça. Mais a été pourquoi? Parce qu'à l'intérieur de la commune, on a voté la motion pour travailler ce thème. Et pour c'est ça que c'est nécessaire de travailler les partis politiques et après l'espace politique où on travaille. Je crois que aussi c'est très nécessaire, nous comme femmes migrantes, de ne pas se laisser utiliser pour les partis politiques. On est des personnes très capables et on voit que nous pouvons, avec les leadership que nous avons, on peut pousser à les femmes politiques belges pour s'identifier avec la problématique des femmes migrantes. Mais c'est très important de dire que nous sommes en la égalité pour penser et pour faire les actions de la même façon. C'est vrai que moi, par exemple, j'ai eu des problèmes avec la langue tout le temps parce que moi, j'ai parti à l'Équateur 10 années et quand je suis revenue, j'ai eu des problèmes. Mais j'ai dit non. Moi, ma tête est très claire et vous devez me comprendre qu'est-ce que je veux dire et ensemble, on va travailler. Et la bonne chose, c'est que c'est vrai qu'à l'intérieur de l'écolo, Il y a la bonne intention, il y a des féministes à niveau fédéral et national, des écolos qui sont extraordinaires, et qui sont députés, etc., et qui nous aident à travailler à niveau local. Mais à niveau local, c'est un peu dire ça. C'est très nouveau la thématique et c'est difficile parfois de comprendre comment est-ce qu'on doit travailler, mais c'est pas difficile de comprendre. On va continuer à faire, on doit continuer. Et la bonne chose, c'est que nous-mêmes, femmes migrantes, on peut mettre les facilités, les programmes pour l'insertion des femmes migrantes. Merci.
Thank you, Cecilia. A very important point you raised about just having women in positions of power doesn't always guarantee that we'll have a feminist agenda. And on that note, Shana, you have very deep insights into the European institutions particularly, and you've spoken extensively on the campaign, Brussels So White. How can the EU institutions create a more safe and inclusive environment for women who come from migrant and racialized backgrounds?
It's a good question and a huge challenge. Three reasons that it's such a big challenge, Emma. Firstly, we don't talk about it so much, but I'm going to say things very starkly and very clearly. We have a Europe which is structurally racist. So there's embedded racism, entrenched racism in our institutions, in our narratives, in our policies, in our thinking. It's not just there's one or two far-right Marine Le Pens or Viktor Orbans or, Geert Wilders who are sort of, poisoning the atmosphere. What I have seen with great pain, I have to say, over the years, since like almost 35 years working on Europe and loving Europe, is that those sort of ideas are being embraced with, I would say, over-enthusiasm by the mainstream. And I say the mainstream, whether it's left or right, in the center. And we've seen this now in the European Parliament, of course. Coalitions are being built between the EPP and the far right in so many areas. And that's how this new European Commission also is extremely right-wing and will, I think for the first time, have a vice president who is far-right from the ECR, we're from the Liga, the Italian neo-fascist movement, Liga Italia. So this is something that is, I think, as I said, destroying Europe. And what it is also that even though we now have an anti-racism action plan and, it's being so-called implemented in many countries, etc., the concept of structural, institutional, systemic racist ideas is not covered by that action plan. It talks more about, training and formation and police ethnic profiling, all the symptoms of it, but not really the real root cause, right? So first, that's that. The second unpleasant thing that I've discovered is what I would call, and I'll say it, it's white feminism. Now, it's not a question of skin color, Emma. I insist, it's about attitudes. You can be brown white feminist, you can be a black white feminist. It's a Eurocentric approach. It negates or ignores intersectionality, doesn't see how systems of oppression, where you're from, your economic background, your social status, etc., your sexual orientation, how all of those come together and create a different kind of experience, right? And so, yesterday I was speaking to a friend of mine, a Moroccan lady, and she said, I hate the word feminist. And I said, yeah, it's become an insult. Because when we talk about feminism, what do we see? We talk about women on boards, women in political power, a prime minister, economic this and that. I mean, come on. There's more to us than that, We're not talking about, for me, real women, right? And so that feminist agenda I reject it. It has to be intersectional. It has to be inclusive. And inclusive feminism is what I think we should all be working for. And this is something that's very difficult to say in Europe at the moment, because it's all about, oh, we've got, how is it? A parity at the European Commission, you know, we've got 16 of this and 17 of that, so hey, you know, we've got gender equality, and I haven't seen any of these women feminists, these white women feminists, do anything that goes beyond what the men are doing. I'm sorry, I do not see it. Maybe I'm blind, colorblind, or whatever, but I don't see it. So we need, and you know, I've seen more feminist principles being adopted by some very, very principled men than I have by women. And I see this in the think tank world. I see this in media. You know, I see it in consultancies. Exactly. So the whole ecosystem of Brussels so white is that. So representation matters, no decision about us without us and all the rest of it. But, you know, this commission, and we're struggling to change that, and I think the officials inside it are very well intentioned. I know a lot of people who are really trying to expand the recruitment, bring in unorthodox thinking, bring in different kinds of, you know, diversity. The diversity that I see in this room, I do not see in the European institutions, you know. And so Brussels so white is not about skin color, it's about Eurocentric attitudes. And finally, I'll also say it here, what's become almost it's a taboo. You go to these meetings and you can't talk about the genocide in Gaza. I'm sorry, what kind of feminist are you? Yeah. What kind of a political leader are you? How dare you champion international law and talk about equality and human rights and democracy to the rest of the world, or even to us, and tell us that, you know, we have to integrate, you know, all of that, when you are in total obscene violation of international law by ignoring what's happening in Gaza, and when you are restricting the freedom of speech of people very openly when they bring up the issue of genocide. So you asked me, you know, what political spaces there are, and I think Leluma has answered it much better than me, because I'm not trying to be a politician. All I'm saying is it's difficult because we have structural barriers to it, and unless we change the narrative of Europe into a more inclusive narrative, a narrative which celebrates multiculturalism, that awful word, which celebrates diversity in all its different manifestations, we will not be able to create, we'll have to fight as our friends have done. No one is going to open the door for you. You have to, a friend of mine says, you have to have a wrecking ball, and you have to wreck open, you know, you have to sort of, you know, really knock that door down. No one's going to open it for you. And we're seeing this now in the Netherlands, the discussions in the Netherlands about how, you know, they will start deporting people, they will build fences. So, you know, the European landscape is, as I said before, it's a dark one, and requires a lot of inclusive feminist, authentic feminist principles to make things better.
Well, there's a couple of points you raised there that are quite important. First thing that comes to my mind is the neoliberal sort of hijacking of feminism. And I think the sort of, the centre sort of parties in Europe have sort of opened the gates to the far right because they're not really meeting the needs of people, and this is what we're seeing. I also think what you said about Gaza is really true. It's a disgrace that so many organisations, feminist organisations as well, in Brussels and in Europe, very prominent ones, have not said a word. And yeah, and I think we can talk on that maybe a bit more later on. Leluma, as we've heard, you have quite an extensive background in journalism. In your perspective, how can the media portray a more positive role of migrant women in the media and stop reinforcing negative stereotypes?
That's a good question, thank you. Just before answering this question, I would say a few words about the politics and politicians that I forgot to mention it before. Sometimes the politics or political parties, they have their own structure and own their policies. And I said as a person that, as a first of all, journalist and then woman, and also with the refugee background, I say that there is some time in their agenda and in their policies need to change something. As a refugee or migrants or color, that if I'm not on it, then they will never pay attention on that. I say it's the most important to be there and talk with them to change it. Yeah. That's the most important. When I joined the political parties, I say that there is few things that we can make it. And I said, I'm here to change even the policy and then also work for everyone equal. If we are saying the equality, but really it's just a word. It doesn't work meaningfully that everyone feel themselves that they are equal, man and woman, refugees, migrant, or their other backgrounds. So sometimes it's better that we should try to change the things that we feel maybe in the past it was okay, but not anymore. We are not always keeping like 20th century for the 21. There is always what is changing. So that was very important. Regarding the journalism, sometimes I say that democracy is good, but if we are not free. Even in Europe, there's always like indirect things that we are not allowed to do or ask to put it.
Red lines.
Yes, exactly. If there is like a structure, so how can we work on it? Okay, nowadays the social media and the technology life, it's something different. But as a journalist, sometimes I say that before we start writing our report, it's already globally published everywhere. What is the point that I mention it? There is not barrier for the extremism and also the radicalism, but there is a structure about how to write and talk and to put something in the news. That's not freedom, and that's not like a real democracy we are facing on that. Especially women from different backgrounds working in the European institution with NATO. I saw many different challenges. Few times at NATO, on that time, NATO present in Afghanistan. The American, when they came during the conference, I always insist to ask a question. Before the press conference, the spokesperson or the deputy spokesperson of US come in the press room and ask, do you have any question? If you said yes, then they ask indirectly, what is your question? When you said in the beginning, I was really new for me, and everything that in my mind, I said that, okay, I was going to ask this question. And they said, oh, okay, that's a really good question. We can make a note, and then you will have the chance to ask this question. I was super happy and waiting for the press conference every time, like, me. Then the conference is finished and no one gave the chance. I said, what the hell?
They knew what you would ask.
Yes. And then finally, after years, I recognized that not share your question directly. Believe me, next time when they came, even after a few times, then I shout and I said, I have a question. I'm the only journalist from Afghanistan. NATO and US is present in Afghanistan. I really have a question. Even that, they didn't give me a chance. And then I learned not share all the truths. Said, okay, I will just ask a question. Which kind of support NATO or US doing for Afghanistan? Then they said, wow, that's a good question. They gave me a chance. And when they gave me a chance, and I asked the question that I wanted. And I said, now I understand. So this is the way that we learn. This is also a big challenge for us. So many experience like that. And finally, one time I remember it was President Biden, I think, came here, and only 2 or 3 questions, but mostly for American media and only 1 European media. And all journalists, including me, were shouting and saying that we are waiting hours here and give only 2 persons to ask a question, but this is the person that they came with them. Huh? And I'm sure that you know this. And I say that it's not really freedom. It's not really democracy. If we are, as a people, not asking the challenging question, as a journalist, that's my really way to put that in the agenda or in the table, to put them in the way that they should think and pay attention on that. But unfortunately, it doesn't work, and especially now it's more difficult, more challenging, and really very shortly they said yes or no, and then they are going in the opposite way that it's not answering your question. Right. So it's not easy to work as a journalist, really. Sometimes I say that, okay, Afghanistan or maybe Pakistan, Iran, they are the developed country. If there is no democracy, we accept, because we know that we are not free so much. It's just a word that we are playing with that. But if it happened in Europe, in which world we are living?
Mm-hmm. This is true.
Thank you, just based on what you've shared, I think it's sad that you had to develop like a tactic just to get heard, and especially because you are from that context. You know, that silencing, it speaks a lot to.
But that's especially why they don't.
Yeah.
Because they know you know more than they know.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you for sharing. Cecilia, in your work with local government and as an advocate for women's empowerment, how has gender-based violence, particularly against migrant women, impacted political participation at a local level? And what initiatives or policies are most effective, in your opinion, in addressing these issues and supporting women in political spaces?
Je voudrais commencer pour la violence, pas sur les femmes migrantes, sinon sur les femmes. Parce que à Otigny-Louvain-la-Neuve, nous avons gagné et nous avons eu une femme, nous avons jusqu'à maintenant, une femme bourgmestre. Pour les partis qui sont fait l'alliance pour gouverner a été terrible après de 6-7 mois de travail d'être commandé pour une femme. Surtout engagée, parce qu'on a eu l'alliance engagée, PS et Écolo. Et engagée a été pas possible d'accepter qu'une femme va traiter les thèmes de finances, les thèmes d'urbanisme, d'aménagement des territoires, de mobilisation, parce que toujours les femmes ont traité les thèmes sociaux. Et ça, il n'y avait pas de problème. Et maintenant que la bourgmestre doit aussi se mélanger et autoriser et coordonner le travail, a commencé la guerre à l'intérieur de la commune. Et après 2 années de travail, on a eu un putsch où engagé à se mettre d'accord avec MR pour faire tomber à la bourgmestre. Et ça a été terrible. De toute façon, à l'intérieur, pendant les 2 années, à l'intérieur de la commune, moi, j'ai lutté très fortement parce qu'il y avait des conseils communaux où a été totalement violenté la bourgmestre pour les échevins engagés MR d'une façon violente et terrible. Et moi, je dis, c'est pas possible. Ici, c'est un conseil communal, vous ne pouvez pas traiter comme ça une femme parce qu'elle est femme. Je crois que si pourquoi vous ne pouvez pas faire la même chose à le monsieur Chevan qui fait le travail des finances. Mais vous le dites à la femme, c'est pas possible. C'est fini, et stop. Tout le temps, je criais, mais moi, j'étais toute seule, c'est vrai. Mais Écolo a commencé à se sensibiliser que c'est ça le problème. Et le moment de l'épouse, il y avait tous les citoyens de Louvain-la-Neuve et d'Otigny qui sont mis en lettres en disant on ne peut pas accepter autre bourgmestre que la personne élue. Et ça a été bien parce qu'il y a été un travail qu'on a fait à niveau des femmes très sensibles et très militantes à Louvain-la-Neuve qui sont mis à faire une lettre et à partir de là, on a eu 5000 signatures pour demander à MER de se retirer del push. Et, OK, on a continué avec de nouvelles négociations et tout a sorti parce que Écolo a demandé que l'université doit payer les impôts nécessaires parce qu'elle ne paye pas, c'est le propriétaire de la terre de Louvain-la-Neuve. Mais elle a beaucoup de bâtiments, beaucoup d'industries là-bas, il ne paye pas des impôts. Et il y a aussi des étudiants qui habitent à Louvain-la-Neuve, mais qui ne sont pas domiciliés, qui ne payent pas des impôts, mais utilisent les services de la commune, la poubelle, de l'eau, etc. Et Écolo a demandé qu'il doit payer l'université les impôts nécessaires. Et tout a commencé pour ça, en disant non, on n'accepte pas, c'est pas possible que l'université va payer ça. Et toutes les entreprises ne peuvent pas payer, etc. Et ils ont fait les push. Mais après un mois, les choses ça a changé parce qu'il y avait les citoyens qui sont demandés, on a voté, la bourgmestre et les chefs et le conseil communal doivent continuer jusqu'à la fin avec les élections. Ça a été très difficile et très compliqué de voir comment un parti de droit et comment les hommes sont violentés de voir que c'est une femme qui va à diriger ou va prendre la coordination. Ça, c'est une chose. En l'Équateur, nous avons élu les présidentes et la vice-présidente. Il y a 2 années ou 3 années, parce qu'il y avait un gouvernement de transition. La vice-présidente élue a été une femme pas sensible à les problématiques des femmes. Elle toujours en la campagne a dit les femmes qui luttent contre la violence seulement un problème d'avoir de l'argent, qu'est-ce qui veut changer, moi jamais j'ai été violentée, etc. Mais maintenant, le président, qui c'est le fils des plus riches de l'Équateur, c'est d'un parti de droit. Je ne dis pas d'extrême droit parce qu'il n'a pas d'idéologie en sa tête, mais elle veut être aussi candidate pour la prochaine fois, qui va être en février. Lui, le moment qu'elle a été élue, l'a envoyé à la vice-présidente à Israël pour négocier la paix là-bas, parce qu'elle ne veut pas avoir à elle à côté. Et maintenant qu'elle doit prendre la présidence parce que lui, elle va être en campagne, les fait juger pour le ministère du Travail en disant que la femme a eu 3 jours à manquer en son travail en Israël et qu'elle ne peut pas être présidente de la République. C'est une femme élue pour les citoyens en Équateur et le monsieur fait les choses qu'il veut comme il veut. Et tout l'appareil politique ne dit rien du tout. Ça, c'est très compliqué. Vous savez, comme ici on dit, les mondes, pas seulement le monde entier commence à avoir la vision des droits et d'extrême droit et de populisme qui en l'Amérique latine c'est plus compliqué parce qu'il n'y a pas d'idéologie là-bas. Il y a seulement des discours, des promesses, ils se montrent pour tous les coins. Mais ça, les gens commencent à penser et à faire confiance. Et ça, c'est pas possible. Mais c'est comme ça, c'est comme ça. Ça, c'est le cas de violence que moi, je présente. Et aussi, je crois que nous ne devons pas se décourager comme en disant on ne peut pas faire rien du tout parce qu'on est maintenant avec la droite ou l'extrême droite. Nous devons continuer. À Louvain-la-Neuve-Ottigny, on a gagné la sélection, mais pas avec la majorité. Les partis comme parti a monté, mais comme engagé a fait une seule liste avec ME, sont gagnés toute la majorité. Et nous, on va à l'opposition avec les PS. Mais ça va. Nous avons fait beaucoup pendant la gouvernance que nous avons eue. On a, avec la motion de violence qu'on a voté d'une façon unanime, on a formé un groupe de violence de la commune interinstitutionnelle où est l'université, la commune, le CPAS, la police, les organisations sociales de Ottigny et de Louvain-la-Neuve. Et on travaille des thèmes très intéressants, et tout le monde se met d'accord maintenant. Le travail en la commune, c'est pas que chaque organisation fait les choses, non. On fait la coordination du travail, là, et chacun fait son travail, oui, mais on coordine. L'université a appris à coordonner le travail contre la violence des étudiantes, et ça c'est bien. Et la police aussi, la police a formé avec les groupes de travail de violence, a reçu 4 ou 5 ateliers contre la violence envers les femmes. Comment doit se traiter? Et ça, c'est bien, mais on ne veut pas perdre les choses que nous on a gagnées. On va continuer l'opposition et on va exiger que ça doit continuer à travailler. On a fait aussi une motion très intéressante à Ottigny-Louvain-la-Neuve, que c'est pour travailler la ville hospitalière pour les migrants. Parce que vous savez qu'à Ottigny-Louvain-la-Neuve, on a une population énorme de, je ne sais pas combien de nationalités à manquer. Je crois que c'est 80 nationalités à l'intérieur de la commune, parce que c'est une ville universitaire. Mais on a fait une motion parce qu'à l'intérieur de la même commune, l'accueil à les personnes migrantes a été terrible. Et surtout après le Covid, que tout a été par Internet et tout ça, et parfois il y a des cas terribles avec les migrants ou avec les exilés, qu'on ne peut pas parler par téléphone d'un côté et de l'autre côté, qui ont besoin de voir la personne directement et de parler et de dire les choses. Mais parfois, l'administration n'a pas la patience, n'a pas la formation pour ce type de problématiques. Et pour c'est ça qu'on a travaillé la motion de ville hospitalière pour donner des capacitations nécessaires à les personnes qui vont venir à la commune, al CPAS, etc. Et ça, on va continuer à le gouvernement des droits à exiger de continuer à travailler. Et sinon, on va aussi envoyer des lettres avec des signatures de personnes qui ne sont pas d'accord avec les maires et avec engagés. Je crois que nous devons continuer à avoir l'espoir surtout nous, femmes migrantes, que normalement, notre vie n'était pas facile ici. Et maintenant, les femmes belges aussi commencent à comprendre qu'on doit être unis, on doit travailler ensemble, on ne peut pas travailler chacun son problème. La dernière chose que je voudrais vous dire, c'est que quand j'ai parlé avec la bourgmestre élue la première fois sur le thème des femmes, il m'a dit « Ah, mais tu sais que moi, je ne me sens pas violentée avec mon mari, avec les partis, non, je ne me pas senti ça et je n'ose pas travailler à l'intérieur de la commune cette thématique. Et pour c'est ça qu'on a dit, OK, on va travailler premièrement avec les partis, parce qu'elle a été des partis écolos, hein, et on va travailler à l'intérieur des partis pour sensibiliser les partis et à les femmes des partis que c'est pas que nous, on n'est pas été violentés, c'est les femmes comme femmes qu'on est violentées. C'est les femmes comme femmes qui reçoivent la violence politique. Et maintenant, elle sait exactement que c'est vrai parce qu'elle a été violentée. Je crois que nous devons continuer à travailler sans arrêt et continuer à lutter. Ça, c'est bien. OK.
Thank you, Cecilia. So you've raised you've raised a couple of interesting points there, that political violence against women in politics is cultural and systemic and can happen within political parties and between political parties. This could take place in the form of exclusion from certain spaces, withholding of funding and so forth. I also like the point that you made there about the welcoming campaign, and I think those campaigns are quite important in terms of shifting people's mindsets and sort of taking ownership of the narrative that surrounds groups of people. So yeah, thank you for sharing. So my last question before we go into the audience is for Shada. So on the issue of online gender-based violence, particularly against women in politics, and especially those from racialised backgrounds, how effective do you think the EU's Digital Services Act will be in addressing these issues? And additionally, Elon Musk, how do you think his taking over of Twitter, now X, will influence the moderation space and in terms of online harassment? And what further steps can the EU do to address these issues?
Thank you, Emma. These are very important questions. I just want to also just highlight once again what Cecilia and you said, Leluma. It's the fact that, you know, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, that's why our voices are important, because Cecilia brings up the issue of racialized women when it comes to healthcare access, violence, sexual violence, which, you know, are maybe specific to certain communities like ours. And, you know, when Leluma talks about she wasn't given the floor to ask a question on Afghanistan, I mean, yeah, because they're afraid. And that's why European and foreign policy is so neo-colonial, is because voices like ours are not there. So European policies need to be decolonized, anti-colonized by people who actually know what's happening in Afghanistan, in Southeast Asia, in China, in Russia, in the United States. And that's why, in a sense, I get the feeling they are afraid of us, because we know a lot. And we know that sometimes the emperor is very naked. Right? So in terms of online harassment, God, I mean, where do I begin? You know, in terms of the kind of nonsense and hate-filled messages that I get a lot of support. I have to start with the hope and the good news. Is when I do speak about Gaza, when I speak about structural racism, Islamophobia, Afro-racism, etc., I get a lot of support from people within the community and outside it, from allies who find it very, very restrictive if they, people like me who are part of the, let's say, institutional setup in terms of access to politicians and all the rest of it, have to raise it. And very few people do. Very few people do. So I get a lot of support, but my God, do I get hate. And it's disgusting. It's obscene. It's indecent, kind of, as a racialized and a woman who has a name like mine. Islam is my surname. I get enormous amount of hate, and that kind of intersectionality of who gets the hate, the fact that women like me, women generally, right, but also women like us get the most hate, is not really recognized very much by the EU or by feminists, right? So this morning, I didn't have the time to go, but I was going to go to a conference organized on online harassment, and I know those people very well, and they're very good friends of mine, but they had, once again, it was a panel of white women talking about it, and I wanted to go there just from the audience to raise the voice and say, do you realize that it's a very important question, but no, I couldn't. I wanted to come here. But that's the kind of thing. So, we're excluded because I don't think it's deliberate. But as you were saying, if you're not there, nobody thinks of you, right? If you're not there, if you're not raising your voice, if you're not asking the questions and making a point, you are a nuisance. Yeah, you're a terrible nuisance, and they'd rather not have you there. But if you're there, you can ask those questions and you put it on the table. And that's what I'm trying to do through my activism, which is basically writing and speaking about it as much as I can, is to put it on the table. This is not something you can sideline, ignore, etc. So, I'm not an expert on the Digital Services Act, thank God, but I do realize that, the EU is trying to bring, and importantly so, its values and its principles into legislation. And we also know that the EU is, when it comes to GDPR and technology, it is a voice of, let's say, some kind of values and principles which countries outside are inspired by. They sometimes fear it, but they really want to be part of this more, let's say, what they call human-based technology, right? So I'm not an expert on that, but I do know that there are loopholes in it, and the loopholes have to do with implementation and definitely have to do with online hate, which concerns women, especially women of color. What about Elon Musk? Well, I mean, if you are, at the moment, I'll be very frank, I'm in a dilemma, right? So I've gone to Blue Sky and I've gone to Mastodon and I'm using LinkedIn more. I'm not smart, it's not my favorite space either. So Twitter for me has been a godsend in terms of learning about what's happening in Gaza, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in India, in Myanmar, in China. Hearing diverse voices has been a fantastic source of research. I think you will agree. What's available there from social media, from journalists, Palestinian journalists in Gaza who are tweeting even as they are being fired on, that is, I think, really valuable. And I'm reluctant to lose that access. But at the moment, so everybody's saying migrate, but I haven't seen big things happening on Blue Sky either. So I'm losing more and more so-called followers because I tweet on Gaza and the EU's, let's say, what should I call this? EU's collective failure. let's be moderate and call it the EU's collective failure. Every time I tweet on that, I lose about 100, another 100, another 100, doesn't matter. But I think all of us, young and old activists and who believe in a certain view of the world, a humanity-focused view of the world, will have to face that dilemma. Where do you go? Where do you go to find like-minded voices? Why I've made so many friends across the world that I've never met, but I met on social media. I follow, you can translate it into different languages, you can learn it so much. So I don't have any magic solutions to it. I would say we'll have to be diverse. We'll have to play on a piano and see where we can get the most beautiful voices from. But what's happening to Twitter is a tragedy. It's a tragedy, but then what's happening to the world? It only reflects what's happening to the world, right?
Thank you, Shada. I'm in the same sort of conundrum. I recently made a blue sky. It is a very different environment. Twitter was also a great source for me. I joined Twitter just after Brexit because I needed that space to find the like-minded people. But I find myself increasingly feeling like I can't use the platform anymore. And it makes me very scared that they're removing a lot of the safety measures that I would have used as a woman on that space, like the blocking function. So yeah, I think there is important questions for us who want to speak out. Where do we go? And hopefully we can find a home, if not Twitter anymore. But yeah, I want to open the floor. We have about 15 minutes left. I want to open the floor to the audience, and maybe we can group some questions together first for the panelists to answer. This lady here would like to ask one.
Bonjour et merci de me donner la parole. Merci aux panélistes de nous avoir partagé votre expérience très enrichissante. Je suis Marie-Pierre Niatani et je représente la plateforme Pluriel, donc travaillons sur les thématiques transversales liées aux femmes migrantes subsahariennes. Et donc ça va être un mélange de questions et de réflexions. Donc la première question, c'était par rapport à la diversité au sein de la migration, parce que nous parlons ici de femmes migrantes, mais quand je regarde, en fait, quand on a parlé tout à l'heure de la diversité de l'audience, je me suis retournée, j'ai regardé, je me dis, tiens, mais la diversité n'est pas aussi représentée que ça. Et donc, c'était de savoir, est-ce que c'est délibéré, ou alors il y a certaines franges de la diversité auquel le message ne parvient pas, parce que c'est pas normal que je sois la seule femme noire de l'audience. Et donc la deuxième question, c'était par rapport aux statistiques ethniques, parce qu'il a été question d'utiliser les statistiques pour appuyer le plaidoyer, donc les données pour appuyer le plaidoyer. Je prends le cas de la Belgique où les statistiques ethniques ne sont pas autorisées, ne sont pas permises. Comment on fait pour les contourner et pour montrer qu'il y a une frange vraiment qui n'apparaît pas, que les chiffres ne mettent pas en évidence. On a parlé du fait qu'il y a la droite qui prend de plus en plus d'ampleur en Europe, donc en Europe, oui, je vais dire en Europe, droite, extrême droite. Est-ce que ce n'est pas une question à se poser de savoir qu'en Belgique, il n'y a qu'un parti de droite, donc la NVA, qui a présenté une députée noire, et c'est sa deuxième législature, alors que tous les autres partis présentés comme étant démocratiques, socio-démocratiques, au centre, etc., ne le font pas jusqu'à présent. La question sur l'intersectionnalité, une des intervenantes a dit que ce n'est pas une question de couleur de peau, si, parce que le concept d'intersectionnalité a été développé dans un contexte afro-américain, où justement on ne peut pas passer à côté de la race, on ne peut pas passer à côté de toute la charge raciste qui touche la population noire et les femmes noires en particulier. Et donc c'était par rapport à un commentaire, what kind of feminism is it, en parlant du fait qu'on ne peut pas évoquer le conflit gazaoui, donc ce que subit, c'est affreux, hein, ce que subit la population de Gaza, etc. Mais je me dis, pendant toute la conférence, les conflits qu'on a cités, j'ai pas entendu l'Afrique. Or, l'Afrique, si on regarde la carte de l'Afrique, ça explose de partout. Les femmes en Afrique subissent le conflit. Et c'est des conflits, je peux parler du Soudan, je peux parler du Nord Cameroun, je peux parler du Congo, du Rwanda, etc. Mais à partir du moment où, même dans le groupe des femmes, dans les groupes féministes, ce n'est pas évoqué, comment peut-on parler de convergence de lutte si, en fait, quand on doit parler des luttes des femmes en général, nous sommes présentes, et quand nous devons lutter pour nos causes, on se retrouve seuls. Donc, est-ce que les femmes vont avancer par paliers en espérant qu'un jour on pense à nous, ou alors on se dit toutes les femmes, nous allons évoluer en même temps à partir du moment où un groupe de femmes est discriminé, minorisé, donc la cause des femmes n'a pas avancé, ou alors on va y aller comme maintenant en se disant, parce que pendant tout un temps, les causes féministes racisées, noires sont invisibles. Pourquoi? Parce que pendant tout un temps, on a participé au combat féministe mainstream, ce qui a invisibilisé nos propres causes. Donc voilà, merci.
Emma, are we going to answer each question, pick up Sarah's question?
There was a lot there, so maybe we want to already unpack some of that. Do any of you feel comfortable? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to speak in English, but I mean, I can speak in French, but I'm more comfortable, so if it's okay with you. Oui, bien sûr. Non, je le sais, mais vous avez posé tellement bien, avec tellement d'éloquence les questions. Si je pouvais être très sûre de moi-même, je parlerais aussi en français, mais... So I absolutely agree with you. It is very important that we talk about Africa. We talk about the violence that's happening in Africa, in Sudan. I'm in touch with Sudanese journalists, and they have told me the same thing, is that we're talking a lot about what's happening in Afghanistan, the genocide in Gaza, and we're not talking about the genocide that's happening in Sudan. And I totally buy your criticism. And I think that has to be remedied, absolutely. And I absolutely agree with you that we need more Black voices in the feminist movement. I think this is a huge, huge gap that's happening here in Europe, even among the inclusive feminists, if you like. And I'll tell you the reason for it. It's because we're so divided. I take part in so many conversations, madam, which are all across Brussels, I've just come back from Bologna. I go to, Amsterdam, all of this. Everybody is talking in separate silos. My Black friends I'm going this evening to a discussion on, it's actually not Empower, you're called We Empower, and it's called Empower EU. Right? And it's led by people of color, including Black women, right? I'm part of some other conversations that are led by Muslim women. They talk about Islamophobia, which of course impacts on African women too, who are Muslim, right? So my real problem with our conversations on anti-racism and building a more just and fair society is that we are working on separate tracks. We're working in silos. It is ineffective. I think Cecilia has pointed out how important it is that we work together. It is totally a waste of our time and energy to be working in silos. What we need is an overarching umbrella. And that's why I'm going to tell you, that's why I'm trying to set up a movement called Women Against Fascism, right? And that movement is not just about brown women, Black women, white women, Asian women. It's about all women who suffer, and men, who suffer under this neo-fascism that we're living on. Because unless we do that, unless civil society stops breaking up into this fragmented kind of universe, right, that we live in at the moment. So many of the questions that you have raised, including the question of lack of data, right, will fall through the cracks, and we will be following an agenda which is dominated by what I have called white feminists, okay? So we as women of color, people of color, need to be in the front line ourselves. And so far we haven't managed. We are little groups here and there. Important, I'm not saying they're not important, but we need to come together. We need to have a coalition, a broader coalition with a strong message. And there are people in the European Parliament now, and MEPs, right? There are women MEPs of color who can take up that cause. So we need to engage with them, right? So I think we need to move beyond our overlapping circles and make it into a broader tent. It has to happen. Otherwise, we will not make progress. That's what the Black Lives Matter movement did in America so successfully, right? Of course, now there's divisions in that too, but we need to make a movement which is across political parties, across genders, and across different sort of silo focus kind of advocacy which exists at the moment.
Would anyone like to add anything?
Just I want to say a few words about that, experience very shortly in the politics. It's not easy, but every time, if they are refusing and there is a lot of discrimination, we should involve. We never give up. If we are not involved, if we are not challenging ourselves, then we are not succeed as a refugee or migrants. So it's not easy to give us the chance. Even when you start searching a job, Doesn't matter your doctorate or your master or you have a lot of experience, the first job that they are offering for the migrants and refugees for the cleaning. I respect everyone that they are working, but we should put some like a I don't know, like policies that, okay, we respect everyone, but not like this. If I stay in that field, then I never try to become in the place that I want. Then they are killing my identity. So why we are not visible everywhere? Because of us. We are not trusting ourselves. If we are trusting ourselves and if we are fighting for our right and for our equality, I am sure that we can make it. We should force the politicians, especially the migrant background, to do real work. Not stay and take the part of the political party. I know it's not easy, but they should say it and ask a question and challenge them why we are here. Sometime, when I go in some conferences, they are talking on behalf of the Palestinian or Israeli or Africans, but they are not really visible in the room. And they are taking some decision. I said, come on. We should bring them. They should talk. They should really share everything. And based on that, then we should take a decision. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And that's why always, mostly, the foreign policy is failed, because as an expert that we have experience on that area, the European, maybe they are making like research, but the research is not really the experience that you have on that. So that's why I ask that we work together, and we should show ourselves everywhere. Doesn't matter it is important or not important. It is important for us to be there and present ourselves. Otherwise, we are not reaching and not arriving in the goal. And we stay, I don't know for how long it's like that, but mostly we should share everything. And always I said solidarity and united.
Cecilia, do you want to add anything very briefly?
Oui, je voudrais vous dire que quand j'ai arrivé à Louvain-la-Neuve, au collectif des femmes, j'ai commencé à écouter qu'une femme belge va parler dans une conférence sur la problématique des femmes migrantes. Et ça m'a choqué terriblement, parce que j'ai dit pourquoi elle parle de notre situation. Je crois que la femme belge a aussi une problématique. Et là, on s'est réunis entre nous et on a dit, c'est pas possible ça. On va dire que non. La prochaine fois, nous devons parler de notre situation et les femmes belges doivent parler de son situation. Quand on a demandé à les femmes belges quelle est ta situation comme femme, nous a dit, ah, tu sais que moi, j'ai parlé toujours de les femmes migrantes, mais pas de moi. Oui, parce que c'est possible qu'elle a pensé qu'il n'y a pas de problématique. Et on a commencé à dire ça avec la violence, avec en ta maison, c'est qui fait la nourriture, c'est qui... Et ça, on doit le faire. Quand je parle de femmes migrantes, je parle de toute la globalité, parce qu'au collectif de femmes, on travaille avec toutes les femmes africaines de différents pays, des femmes arabes, des femmes réfugiées qui viennent de tout. Et on a l'habitude de parler des femmes migrantes de tout. Je ne parle pas des femmes latino-américaines, sinon des femmes migrantes. Mais elle est partie, j'ai vu que c'est nécessaire que les femmes africaines noires doivent venir à les partis pour parler de la situation et pour défendre les droits des femmes noires. Et moi, j'ai invité à 4 femmes extraordinaires à être candidates, mais elles me sont dit non, parce que c'est ma mère monoparentale. L'autre a des enfants, 4 enfants petits. Mais ils sont très enthousiastes de participer à la politique, mais ne peuvent pas. L'autre m'a dit, tu sais que je ne connais pas bien les réseaux sociaux, je dois premièrement me former, etc. Et ça, c'est le problème que nous devons faciliter. c'est ça qu'à l'intérieur des écolos, on a fait une commission sociale, pas des femmes, sinon sociale, où on va commencer à travailler comment est-ce qu'on peut aider à les femmes migrantes, noires, arabes, qui ne viennent pas à faire la politique. Il y a beaucoup de femmes arabes, il y a beaucoup de femmes africaines, mais pas de femmes arabes et femmes noires à l'intérieur de les partis comme candidates. Et pour c'est ça que nous devons commencer à demander à l'intérieur des partis de donner des formations de computation, comment ça s'appelle, des réseaux sociaux. Tous les réseaux sociaux des femmes, c'est pas compliqué, c'est pas difficile. Seulement qu'on doit avoir une personne qui t'aide les premiers moments, après on part, hein. On fait des photos tout le temps, et ça on va le faire. Et on doit aussi se former pour parler de notre problématique.
Merci, merci. On va.
We want to try to get more questions and yeah.
Merci. On prend encore des questions et peut-être ensemble.
Thank you very much for this wonderful space. I am Maria Gonzalez. I come from Colombia. I'm living in Belgium for 5 years. I am recently a graduate from my master's, and I wrote my thesis about labor market integration of Latin American women, migrant women in Flanders. And currently I am an intern also at the Center of Migration, Gender and Justice. It's an NGO located in Germany. And I have a question regarding labor market. I'm also starting some workshops with the social organizations. This is really on my own work. And I encounter a lot of difficulties with migrant women. And I have a question for the three of you. How would you encourage migrant women to overcome barriers, of course, in trainings and barriers, but specifically racism, and actively engage in politics, but of course I'm more interested to pursue their professional aspirations. As I mentioned, as a researcher, I have listened many stories of migrant women, and mainly the biggest problem, the biggest challenge seems to be the fear instilled by dominant narratives that often confine us to traditional roles and the dominant discourse of staying at home and taking care of kids, caregiving roles, which are wonderful and we can do it very well, but we need to go also outside and work. And that's actually my master thesis title, Making It Work. Thank you.
And we are taking a second one. You can complementary questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Aslıhan Tekin. I'm the EU representative for Women's Coalition Turkey. I have been in Brussels for 20 years now, and we had the chance to collaborate with you in different occasions. I would like to thank you all, and I want to share a little bit comment and a little bit of questions that I would be happy to listen to your voices. I mean, one thing was when we talk about women's political participation and how the political party's role is very important, you have very well raised. I would also like to raise, like, as in my organization, we concentrate on local politics. So it is also politics, but also we have come to a point like representation, women's representation, like you have mentioned, Women on Board Directive, 50-50 parity. This is one side of the coin, but the real side of the coin is participation at all levels, meaning like how women from their homes, from their schools, from wherever they are based, how they can be involved in strategy making, planning, without being a politician too. You know, politics is everywhere. As an activist, we are politicians. I can identify myself, but I'm not maybe running for the, as a candidate for politics. But politics is everywhere for activists, for our daily feminist understanding. So my question is about participation. How do you think participation could be more facilitated? This is one part of for women. And there's this, we don't have one migrant, as you have very well mentioned, all of you, that there's no one migrant woman profile. We are women of all, and with our differences. So it is very important when we not only talk about Afro or, from different ethnicities and including all of us together, how we can really, it is very difficult to facilitate these environments and round tables where all of us are represented. Seriously, I'm also involved in European Women's Lobby. I'm a board member. I'm speaking on different hats. And even in different white feminist, establishments, it is so difficult to bring anyone in. So we have when you have also mentioned this overlapping, good faith or good understanding of same issues, and we talk within our corners, but sometimes we don't talk about the same thing. We think that we talk about the same thing, but we don't give the same, how should I say, maybe we don't have the same tools. We talk about the same thing, but we don't have the same tools. We don't have the same chances. Maybe we don't, even if we have the same chances and tools, then we don't have the same intentions. So it is very difficult to bring all of them together, but I'm looking forward to any, fruitful grounds that we have this AGA forum, for example. There will be Gender Equality Forum in December. I'm so curious how it is going to, we have so many, we will see how many will be represented. Disabled women. We talk about, young women, younger generation of migrant women. It is so difficult to integrate them. I am looking forward to bring them all together within this intersectionality, intergenerational gap. If you have any on this regard, I have that question. And finally, I want to talk about the crisis, the impact of crisis, meaning the crisis, not only the economic crisis, but now we are, I think, living in the age of continuum of crisis. Like it was COVID, now the war situation, Gaza, Ukraine, every day is another crisis. And what is our position as migrant women? We are on different, of course we come with different backgrounds, but there will be even more crisis. Do you have any, where we can bring more solidarity in? Thank you. Any tips? Thanks a lot.
We can still take one question.
I don't think.
Oh, it's finished. Okay.
Sorry.
If it's brief, we can take the brief, but we do need the wrap.
During the break, we can still talk and discuss. I think that is the invitation, that we take the space to address personal questions to everyone.
Yes.
I think Cecilia can talk about.
Je voudrais aborder la thématique de comment motiver à les femmes à participer à niveau politique, à les femmes migrantes. Mais c'est une question un peu compliquée. Parce que comme femme normale, il y a 3 ou 4 tâches de travail pendant la journée. Comme femme migrante, ça, on a plus à niveau mental. Et faire la politique, c'est une tâche plus. Que les partis politiques ne pensent pas comment aider à les femmes migrantes à participer à la politique. Avec les horaires de temps, normalement les réunions sont les soirs, les femmes doivent être à la maison avec les enfants, donner à manger, après faire toutes les tâches qui a manqué pendant la journée parce qu'elle a travaillé, elle étudie, et elle fait la recherche, elle participe aussi aux organisations sociales, c'est-à-dire que on doit penser le temps quand les partis convoquent les réunions pour faire participer les femmes. Pourquoi les femmes africaines m'ont dit non, ne peut pas? Parce qu'elle n'a pas le temps. Elle a vie, mais n'a pas le temps de participer à ça. C'est-à-dire qu'un obstacle très grand, c'est le temps. Nous avons comme femmes 3 ou 4 tâches de travail que normalement on a. En plus, on doit prendre la langue, hein, et c'est aussi une tâche. L'autre chose, c'est aussi comment à l'intérieur des partis politiques, se doit travailler le racisme à l'intérieur, le racisme. Parce que malheureusement, ici, il y a toujours la façon de comprendre migrante. Les migrantes, c'est qui? C'est les personnes qui dorment dans les stations, c'est les voleurs, c'est les personnes qui violent. c'est-à-dire qu'il y a déjà en la tête des personnes la conception des migrantes. Plus si c'est une femme noire. Plus si c'est une femme avec les vols. Non. Et ça fait tomber sa préconception terrible qui nous donne ici les pays d'Europe. C'est compliqué parce que chez nous, en Amérique latine, être migrante, c'est toujours bienvenu et toujours c'est un statut différent, supérieur, parce qu'ils sont un peu blanches, non? Mais aussi des autres couleurs, mais pour nous, ils sont bienvenus. Mais ici, c'est déjà un blocage parce que c'est migrante. Plus si c'est une femme. Et aussi pour incentiver à les femmes migrantes à participer en politique, se doit travailler à l'intérieur des partis, aussi les organisations de femmes, à faire parler à les femmes en public. Parce qu'il y a des femmes très intelligentes, mais qui n'ont pas l'expérience de dire les choses qu'elles sont d'une façon coordonnée. Et ça, au collectif de femmes, les gens nous montrent comment on doit faire, et on répète, et ça c'est bien. Parce que de cette façon, les femmes perdent les peurs de parler en public. L'espace privé toujours a été entre nous, mais sortir à l'espace public et en politique, c'est plus dur que ça. Je m'arrête là. Merci.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
So on the question of, as you said, the fear that women face when they're, as you said, Cecilia, coming out of their homes, etc. I mean, I think that is inevitable, even when you're outside and you're working as we are. I mean, I can tell you that I face fear, and I have to face my fears. I have to overcome those fears almost every day. So I think the first step really has to be a kind of confidence to say, yes, I will be fearful. Yes, I will be nervous. Yes, I will be, there will be moments of panic. But I think it's the only way forward, because the dominant narrative, or what I call the master narrative, is, and even now in Europe it's coming back, and in the US it's going to be big time. The woman her place is in the home. I mean, that is going to be the dominant narrative. And I think, as you said, the crisis that we face is going to force women outside the homes, right? So we're going to face some very major, as you said, conundrums or dilemmas as societies going forward. If we are going to flourish, and I seriously don't think we'll flourish if we're to survive the coming years, we will have to need all hands on deck. And that means using the talent that we have, the talent of migrant and refugee women who are doing jobs that they are overqualified to do in many cases, right? So I think all of these, but where I think what's important also is leadership on these issues, right? And I haven't seen it, and I will not see it at the European level. So I'm hoping that it will come on the national level or the regional and the communal level. Your question also about how do you represent everyone? Well, the first step is, do you actually want to represent anyone beyond your own circle? And for me, in this work that I've been doing for the last 25 years on anti-Islamophobia, anti-racism, etc. The first point is, do you actually want to expand? And I can tell you, I've worked inside so many of these organizations on advisory boards and this and that and all the rest of it. It's still a struggle. It's still not a question that people think about automatically. When you're talking about Brussels Binder, this is an expert group of, a database on women who are experts. So instead of just inviting men to your panel discussion, you also then have a list of women you can invite. I mean, Brussels Binder did not even think of diversity or intersectional before people like me started saying, I'm not going to be part of this. I'm not going to be part of this group. I have left so many women's groups, because I don't want to be part of discussions which are so stuck on questions of racism. So I would say the first step has to be to actually recognize. And I don't think any of our organizations today, beyond tokenism, because there's a lot of tokenism in our world, in Europe, diversity is now a buzzword. Even NATO is becoming very, very diverse because it has women soldiers and women generals, you know, and so all of that thing is just now basically tokenism. But I think in terms of leadership also, and I'll stop there, it has been divide and rule. That is why we've got an anti-racism agenda which is divided into 5 or 6 different tracks, right? Islamophobia, Semitism, Afrophobia, Roma, disabilities, gender fluidity, let's say. It should be all one. We're part of the same struggle for representation and a voice. So I think first thing is to change mindsets. And that those mindsets are not going to change automatically unless you start knocking on those doors, right? So whether the crisis will help, I think the crisis will make things worse before it makes things, if possible, better.
Thank you. So we're going to wrap up the panel. So let's give a round of applause to our panelists for a great discussion. Sorry, did you want to talk? Sorry, I thought you said.
No, it's okay. No way. I think there is not more to say because they already shared everything. Just don't forget that there is crisis always, but more victims are women in different crises. So we should work together and find a solution. Otherwise, we are not succeed. And also for the racism and everything that happened. We work together, united together. And doesn't matter from which religion and which country we are, but as a woman, as a human, we keep in mind that she has this problem. Maybe one day me, my daughter, my sister, my neighbors have the same problem, and we support each other. And the second part, if we are supported, first of all, by men from our family, then we can participate everywhere. Because I saw it, I'm Muslim, but the case of religion, mostly, it's like born in Afghanistan, always in my mind, in everywhere, not in my family, because my father was a wonderful man, and say that women always mostly accept what the husband, what the father, what the brother, what even if they don't have this, the uncle say respect. So if we are going by them, then how can we find our identity? We should respect also ours and then supported by family, then I think we can make a lot of achievements.
Thank you, Lynn. Now the real applause. I would like to call up my colleague Amanda, who will close off the event. Do you want to use the mic, Amanda? Yep.
Moi, je vais parler en français parce que mon anglais il n'est pas aussi bon que... c'est extraordinaire femme qui vient de parler, c'est vraiment motivant. Ça me donne envie de rentrer en politique après ça. Donc, moi, je viens du collectif des femmes. C'est une association qui existe depuis 45 ans, formée par des femmes migrantes qui travaillent pour les droits des femmes et surtout des femmes migrantes. Il faut dire qu'on est 90% de notre personnel, c'est des femmes migrantes issues de la migration. Mais je suis belge, aussi nationalisée belge, donc je me sens belge, intégrée et luttant pour les droits des femmes. Et une des choses qu'on a beaucoup entendues en fait, mais avant je voulais faire une petite réflexion, c'est que déjà être femme c'est compliqué dans une société patriarcale, accéder en politique encore plus, blanche, noire, arabe, c'est super compliqué. Même d'une manière active et inactive. Active, j'ai dit être candidate, être dans un parti politique, et inactive aussi, travailler dans une association du quartier, ça c'est aussi de la politique. travailler dans une ONG ou être militant dans un groupe ou un collectif féministe ou de migrants, etc. Ça aussi, ou dans un syndicat, ça aussi c'est de la politique et c'est aussi compliqué. Pour une fois, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de barrières. Il faut savoir qu'on est dans une société patriarcale dans laquelle c'est difficile à pouvoir avoir accès à un rôle actif dans la société. Mais encore plus, il y en a des femmes migrantes. Et donc, justement, en lisant un peu le projet de White, il y avait une phrase qui m'avait impacté. Les femmes migrantes en Europe constituent une population dynamique et croissante, apportent tous les niveaux de la société. Donc, c'est le travail actif, mais aussi les femmes qui gardent des enfants. Et je parle beaucoup parce qu'on travaille avec des femmes sans papier, qui sont des femmes qui travaillent et gardant des enfants dans les familles ici en Belgique. Ils travaillent énormément et ils s'apportent énormément à la société pour que les autres personnes puissent travailler. Ils s'apportent aussi au niveau économique. C'est aussi des femmes qui restent sans voix, sans participation parce qu'ils n'ont pas de papiers, mais ça on va venir un peu après. Et aussi on voyait qu'en 2024, dans les élections, seulement 37 des 720 députés européens sont issus de communautés ethniques et racisées. Et ce qui souligne des obstacles persistants de la diversité en politique européenne. Mais pas seulement européenne, je parle aussi au niveau national ici en Belgique, mais dans les différents pays d'Europe, aussi au niveau communal. On avait la chance qu'il y a quelques femmes élues au niveau communal, dans la commune autour de Timur-Vallaneuve, mais aussi ici en Belgique. Mais on va parler aussi de qu'il y a différents types de barrières. Donc, il faut parler que les femmes migrantes, il y a différents types de migration. Il y a les femmes migrantes européennes, donc les femmes qui sont nées ici en Europe, que moi je dis les expats, parce qu'ici on est à la Commission européenne, il y a beaucoup de femmes qui viennent des autres pays de l'Europe, qui n'ont pas les mêmes barrières qu'une femme migrante non européenne,
Oui.
mais nationalisée, comme moi.
Exact.
Et dans lesquelles on a des barrières au niveau de la langue, de aussi pouvoir s'intégrer, d'un réseau, etc. Mais aussi les femmes migrantes avec un titre de séjour précaire ou un titre de séjour en demande d'asile. Ça, c'est un autre, donc ils n'ont pas la nationalité. Ils ont des autres difficultés, des autres problématiques pour pouvoir accéder à une politique active et je dis toujours active, mais aussi c'est aussi la politique, comme je dis, être dans des syndicats, être dans les ONG, être militante. Donc direct et indirect, c'est ça. Ou les femmes sans papier. Ça, c'est une autre barrière, c'est des autres types de barrières aussi pour les femmes sans papier, pouvoir accéder. C'est presque impossible, ils sont invisibles. Ou les femmes aussi avec, comme je dis, précaires ou provisoires, des titres de séjour précaires ou provisoires. Je parle aussi des personnes qui demandent l'asile politique, qui ont un annexe 26, qui peuvent jamais voter parce qu'ils n'ont pas 5 ans, ils n'ont pas les bons titres de séjour. Comment pouvoir s'impliquer? Difficile. Et aussi tenir compte des femmes dans la monoparentalité. On a parlé ici des femmes, les difficultés des femmes dans la monoparentalité. Nous, femmes migrantes, et je me mets moi-même dans les cas, je suis dans la monoparentalité, très difficile de pouvoir accéder parce qu'on parle de rôles. Il faut déjà, une femme doit avoir différents rôles dans la maison. Donc parfois c'est 2 ou 3 temps plein qui ont fait comme travail quotidien. Plus la surcharge mentale, parce que ça aussi on compte pas, mais c'est une surcharge mentale aussi qui affecte, et je dis pas plus ou moins les femmes migrantes, mais oui, il faut aussi reconnaître que la surcharge mentale des femmes migrantes aussi, c'est plus comment est-ce que je vais accéder à mes papiers, qu'est-ce que je vais faire pour les écoles, comment est-ce que je vais faire avec ça, je suis seule avec les enfants, je dois aller à l'avocat, je parle pas la langue, je comprends pas, j'ai la fracture numérique. Et plein des obstacles qui s'ajoutent encore si on est dans la monoparentalité. Les différences culturelles aussi ont influence au niveau de la participation politique. Donc, l'origine géographique joue un rôle déterminant dans la participation politique des femmes migrantes. Une femme venant d'un pays arabe, ou africain, ou latino-américain, ou asiatique, ou autre, confronte des obstacles culturels et des stéréotypes, ou des attentes, et je veux dire aussi la couleur de peau, impacte sur l'implication sociale et politique et publique de ces femmes. C'est très compliqué. Et aussi, il ne faut pas oublier les femmes migrantes des première génération, deuxième génération, qui souffrent aussi des barrières. Et même si on est né ici, en Belgique, même s'ils sont nés ici, je parle de mon fils par exemple, mais ma fille aussi, ils peuvent être confrontés à des discriminations systémiques. Et je parle aussi, j'ai quelques collègues ici qui sont nés ici en Belgique, qui se confrontent toujours à cause d'un voile, à cause d'une couleur, avec des discriminations. Même s'ils sont nés, c'est deuxième, troisième génération. Et comment on peut participer en politique d'une manière active? Ce n'est pas seulement activement, c'est être candidate comme Cécilia était. Je pense que aussi Shada, non, je ne sais pas si vous étiez candidate, mais Laïlouma, elle était candidate. Je ne sais pas s'il y a des autres candidates ici dans la salle. Ou adhésion à un parti politique, mais d'une manière indirecte, c'est aussi l'implication dans des associations. Moi, je suis en politique parce que je suis d'une manière active et militante, comme mes collègues aussi, dans la lutte pour les droits des femmes, mais aussi dans des activités de bénévolat avec des collectifs migrants, etc. Et ces engagements civiques peuvent mener vers un engagement politique. Ça peut être aussi un tremplin, quelque chose qui peut dégager, que je puisse m'impliquer d'une manière active et être une candidate au niveau politique. Évidemment, après écouter ces grandioses femmes, j'ai envie de m'engager parce que je pense que tout le monde l'engagement politique, et j'espère que ça va servir. Vous êtes un exemple, et c'est ça aussi, être candidate, être élue, ça donne aussi l'exemple à des autres femmes à pouvoir aussi s'élancer dans la politique. Mais il y a beaucoup de défis, beaucoup de problématiques. Un des problématiques, c'est qu'il faut sensibiliser les partis politiques. Les partis politiques, justement, à la thématique des genres. Il faut dire que les partis politiques sont faits par des hommes pour des hommes. Il y a un changement depuis quelques années, mais il y a encore moins. Donc là, il faut encore gagner pas mal d'espace. Et c'est seulement nous, femmes, conscientes de notre problématique, qu'on peut faire des changements. Donc il faut faire une sensibilisation à l'intérieur des partis. Et aussi, sensibiliser nous-mêmes sur notre problématique. C'est quoi notre problématique? Et je vais finir bientôt. C'est quoi les problématiques de nous pour pouvoir aussi arriver à un changement durable? C'est ça l'importance. Pouvoir faire des changements qui puissent... une des choses que disait Cécilia et un peu tous les trois, c'est qu'en étant femme, ça ne signifie pas qu'on va faire des changements de politique pour nous-mêmes. Et aussi, une chose qu'on parlait, c'est la solidarité entre femmes. Ça, c'est très important, être solidaire entre femmes. Et aussi, encourager, donc la solidarité, encourager les autres femmes, justement migrantes, à accéder à la politique et surmonter, en fait, aussi mettre la politique au niveau des femmes. Ça signifie qu'il faut savoir que les hommes n'ont pas le même timing que les femmes. Les hommes peuvent accéder à des réunions les soirs parce que les rôles sont différents. Par contre, nous, les soirs, il faut garder les enfants, etc. Et beaucoup de réunions, c'est les soirs, jusqu'à minuit, 1 heure. Donc, comment on peut accéder justement à pouvoir rentrer en politique? Mais il y a beaucoup de choses à en parler. Je vois que le temps, il est court. Hein? Je ne sais pas si j'ai encore 2 minutes. Et donc, parce que...
C'est fini.
C'est fini. Et donc, quoi, nous engageons encore plus, travailler pour nous-mêmes. Et je voulais remercier ces 3 formidables femmes, justement, pour être venues, et aussi à White, pour travailler justement sur l'empowerment des femmes. Et aussi à toutes les autres associations qui travaille justement pour que les femmes puissent accéder à la politique en faisant des ateliers. Et comme nous, on fait au collectif des femmes, en travaillant aussi sur l'empowerment des femmes migrantes. Merci. Merci beaucoup.
I would also just like to thank the interpreters, and apologies for going over for 20 minutes, but thank you so much. Your interpretation has been really good today.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Everyone have lunches outside is what Hello, I'm ready to see.
And me. No, I am like I do some NGO sector for capacity. It's more about coaching and facilitation to workshops. But I was just have a lot of section I still felt the space of very conservative, and the other issue is that that's a big topic in the United States, and it's access to health is a huge issue, and the challenging I know that myself. I went to interacting with that. I still have a job at this time. Imagine the issues that I might face in the since I'm a common person, non-binary. That's why I think especially for black in Belgium, then you have to raise the other thing is which is 225. I so I allowed to take risks. We can have a conversation on that. That's all I know. I mean, I'm not representing the government, but because I tried to do that for our company when I was part of France, that one to two statistics. But could not probably well intentioned for imagine for them access to health. I will use it because it takes a lot of people are really not only about the mental, but it's also about each other's spaces before. The follow-up and making sure make sure you get the right reimbursement, the financing and stuff like that. Imagine the challenges they would be. stuff. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things to do. Oh, sure. According to my paper,
Then I can be a member. No, this is
Yeah, a lot of members, I think they are.
so like,
showing my age.
no worries.
Yeah, I think we need a bit more concrete, solid, to get it up and going, and that you know, find some of these members that we know that they're engaged.
So when you do your space person like this,
Even this project itself is
Yeah, I think that's
there's a lot of, I mean, so many things which I know you're so yeah, a lot to do, but
Oh, that's cool.
print out of that instead of, or you can actually get it printed in the back of your card.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because if you have a QR code, I'm sure that you will your camera.
Oh, now it's number it.
So we'll
Yeah.
keep in touch and have a safe journey back to home. Thank you.
And it doesn't need to be right side up, I can even do the QR code where you twist in your reverse.
Oh my gosh, how cool is this?
Just tap it.
Follow you and I can Angie. That's not.
And here, underneath your QR code, share like your things that it can mean on WhatsApp, or save photographs and then you can make a video.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm learning so much.
And you're not the only one, and it's not just a shoot, I'm sure there I'm just this is my job, it's business development, so my tool is LinkedIn, so that's a shadow of saying.
LinkedIn's fabulous.
She was like, she's not the most comfortable LinkedIn. But for me, most of my life has been on LinkedIn. I wasn't on a whole lot of other social media, so I never came on Twitter. So I didn't have to go through the whole. And what do you do now?
And I also am analyzing all
But you're working in what?
and I work for Alpha Politics for an organization and I write reports on what the findings of what I'm doing.
Okay, but here you'd like to start something of your own?
No, I would like to get involved in an organization.
Oh.
And work that I am passionate about. I really believe it to be such a helping people, but it's not always easy to find right away. And they're kind of looking at me funny because it's like, we're educated in the United States. What do we do with that? I don't speak French. What do we do with that? And so,
Yeah, my recommendation is probably no to spend time on those organizations because they know your organization.
J'ai compris, mais je sais pas si c'est plus vite que vous. message